Check 1 2, check 1 2. Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. And today we are going to be talking about a brand new 5G study. I'll give everyone a moment to catch up. This is Derrick Broze again. Hopefully the connection's all right and not too choppy. Using a brand new program for the first time, so hopefully it'll work out all right. I'm coming at you live from Mexico. We are live on the Conscious Resistance on Facebook, Derrick Broze on Facebook, and the Conscious Resistance on YouTube. All right, cool. Seeing some comments come in. I'm thinking you guys are hearing me okay. First off, I'll remind everybody to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com, which is your home for all of our content, all of our, let me make sure I got this right. Oh yeah, cool, we got this. All right, we're going to share a screen. Yeah, theconsciousresistance.com. This is the place where I want you guys to go bookmark, stay up to date with, right there. And this is where you can find all of our content, all the social networks. You can download my books, download my documentaries. If you want to purchase them, you can watch them for free. You can do all the good stuff. Again, bookmark theconsciousresistance.com and sign up for our text list, guys. Sign up for our text list. We've got a lot of new people signing up lately, so that's been cool. And we are things are exploding, to be quite honest. Our Freedom Cell network is exploding. The subscribers on the Conscious Resistance is growing. The subscribers and the followers on the Derrick Broze Facebook page is growing. And even the Conscious Resistance Facebook, which I haven't used for over a year until recently, is still growing. So I'm excited about that. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in. As you can see by the words on the screen, we're talking about a new 5G study. This is a brand new 5G study, guys. This is not going to be a study or a discussion about 5G and coronavirus or speculation about the two connecting. Yes, it suppresses. EMFs can affect the immune system, but we're not going to be getting to speculation today. Instead, I'm bringing you hard facts, documentable evidence from a new study that has just been released. Actually, I don't even know if it's officially out yet, but in the interest of keeping things short, we're going to go ahead and dive in. So let me make sure to share the screen. Let's check this. All right. So hopefully you guys are seeing this study now. Adverse health effects of 5G mobile networking technology under real life conditions. I want to remind you guys, though, while we're jumping into this, please do share this video. If you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, send it out to your friends and family. Get them to be aware of this study right now. Adverse health effects of 5G mobile networking technology under real life conditions. And as you can see here, it's going to be published in the journal Toxicology Letters on May 1st, 2020. So it has not even officially been published. You can come here and you can read the highlights. You can see the abstract. You can read the graphical abstract, and you can see some keywords. And then to actually get this study, and this is kind of the problem that for everybody, those of you who remember Aaron Schwartz, rest in power, Aaron Schwartz, he tried to expose that this whole peer-reviewed system, these journals that are all behind paywalls, that there's so much knowledge being stuck behind paywalls that people don't have access to. So he tried to change that and unfortunately wasn't able to. But just as an example of that, you see this right here, get rights and content, if you actually want to look at this article. So you open that up, and I'm just going to share this with you before we get into the actual information so you guys can understand what it takes to be an actual researcher. And, I consider myself a journalist, not just reading abstracts and jumping to conclusions or, making stories and things fit what you want them to be, but actually looking at what they say. So when you click this link here to get the rights and content, it's loading pretty slow. So maybe I'll just spare you the details and tell you exactly what happens. It goes to this website here. What would you like to do? Would you like to purchase this content, which is what I did? Would you like to reuse it in news media? And you basically have to get permission. I decided to purchase this content. And as you can see here, it costs $55. It comes out to a total of $60. So if anybody feels like contributing to the Conscious Resistance today, you can find all of our Patreon links, patreon.com/Derrick Broze. You can find our PayPal link, all that, because this is what it takes to be an actual researcher. It costs money. It takes money. And I'm thankful to my friend Aaron of the Mind Unleashed. He did pay for half of it. We split the cost of it so that I could dissect it. And we're going to read through it. I have the actual study here. So we'll just read some highlights and then we'll look at the actual paper. highlights identifies wide spectrum of adverse health effects of non-ionizing, non-visible radiation. So again, to the skeptics in the room, most of us are told that non-ionizing means safe, basically. It means that it cannot ionize the atoms. And so when you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, on the right side of the spectrum is the sun, X-rays, gamma rays, things of that sort, which are known to cause harm to human health. And then you cross over to the other side where it's non-ionizing, where you have radio waves and microwaves and things of that sort. And we are told, we have all been taught in school that that means they're safe. Cell phones can't harm you, microwaves can't harm you, computers can't harm you, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. Excuse me. Obviously, that's not true. And here's another highlight. Most laboratory experiments were not designed to identify the more severe adverse effects reflective of real-life conditions. This is the key here. This study, which is not really, I would say it's not a study in the sense that they did a bunch of experiments. They're actually examining the existing studies, both that have found adverse health effects with EMF and radio frequency radiation, aka RFR. And they're also looking at the studies that have found no adverse health effects. And they examine both of them. Again, they look at the studies that show problems and they look at the studies that show no problems, and they compare the two. And what they're saying is that many of the laboratory experiments were only carried out in the laboratory and do not reflect actual real life conditions, which is, for example, the fact that we are exposed to all kinds of toxins and EMFs out in the wild. Many experiments do not include the real life pulsing and modulation of the carrier signal. So again, that's another aspects that many experiments don't take into consideration. The vast majority of experiments do not account for synergistic adverse effects of other toxic stimuli with wireless radiation. And I think this is an important part of the puzzle because many of you have been looking at COVID-19 and, you know, some people have outright been saying it's not real, it's 5G that's causing this. And I've noticed how plenty of people have now changed the goalposts and now they're saying, no, we weren't saying that. It's just the immune system. And that's true. 5G, EMF, RFR can affect the immune system. And this is basically saying that a lot of the experiments that have been done do not take into account the synergistic, which means the effect of things working together and those adverse effects. So wireless radiation plus glyphosate plus fluoride plus whatever the heck they're spraying in the air plus toxins in the soil, water runoff, chemical runoff. There's so many other toxins, and the synergistic effect of them working together is what is the big problem with wireless radiation. The final highlight says 5G mobile networking technology will affect not only the skin and eyes, but will have adverse systemic effects as well. So let's read the abstract. This article identifies adverse effects of non-ionizing radiation, non-ionizing non-visible radiation, hereafter called wireless radiation, reported in the premier biomedical literature. It emphasizes that most of the laboratory experiments conducted to date are not designed to identify the more severe adverse effects reflective of the real-life operating environment in which wireless radiation systems operate. So again, they're not taking into account the real-life experience, not just isolating radio frequency radiation and in a lab, but actually testing it. Hey guys, hold on for 2 seconds. I'm going to go close this window. It's a little loud. Hopefully that helps. So, the vast majority do not account for the synergistic adverse effects of other toxic stimuli. This article also presents evidence that the nascent 5G mobile networking technology will affect not only the skin and the eyes, as commonly believed, but will have adverse systemic effects as well. So that was kind of a recap of the highlights. Now, before we get into the actual study, let me make sure you guys are all still there and everything's good. Cool, we got comments, people coming in from all over the place. What's up, Coco? What's up? Seeing some old friends. Awesome, awesome. A little too late. I'm not sure what that means. I'll read your comments later. But if you're talking shit, I probably will just ignore you. All right, we're going to continue this on for those of you who came for the information. Let's get into the actual study. And so as I mentioned, guys, you have to go to this website. You got to pay for it. It's $60. And then once you get that, you can't even actually download a PDF. They make it so difficult to just share this information. So I'll show you. I'm having to open up a Word document. You have to download Adobe Editions. Then you can download Adobe Editions, and then you can look the study inside Adobe Editions, but you can't actually download it to anything simple. And I think it's kind of part of the system. of keeping people from accessing knowledge. But all right, let's get into the actual study. And I did make some notes here. Let me see, application window. All right, you guys are going to look at this, and I'm going to read some notes. I think you'll be able to see it, though. Here you go. All right. Adverse health effects of 5G mobile networking technology under real-life conditions. And I mean, honestly, I don't have a problem if anybody wants to use my account and to look at this. I'm trying to figure out a simple way to just download it as a PDF and post it on my website. But if anything, we're going to take screenshots of this and we will put it up on the consciousresistance.com. Because like I said, this study hasn't even come out yet. It is still more than a month away. And I believe we're the first ones to explore it. So congratulations for being here. I will zoom in, but I just want you to see the full page. So you can see toxicology letters, just so everybody knows I'm looking at the actual study. And you can see, let's look at some of the credentials of the folks involved, if we can. So Ronald Kostoff, Paul Haro, Michael Ajner, Aristides, that's a cool name, Sakis. Kostoff is coming from, he's a research affiliate at the School of Public Policy at the Georgia Institute of Technology. Haro is coming from, or however you say that, sorry, Toxicology and Health Effects of Electromagnetism at McGill University, Canada. Michael Ajner is coming from Molecular Pharmacology, Einstein Center of Toxicology at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. The last gentleman here, oh, maybe it's Greek. He has two qualifications, Laboratory of Toxicology Medical School at the University of Crete in Greece, and the Department of Analytical Toxicology, Pharmaceutical Chemistry, and Pharmacognosy, never heard of that, at Sezhenov University in Moscow, Russia. So those are the gentlemen, I believe it's all gentlemen, that we are dealing with today who put this study together, which again will be published in the Journal of Toxicology Letters on May 1st, 2020. And let's get into it. So I'm going to show you guys, you're just going to stare at this on screen for a second, or let me scroll down. I made some notes on a separate page that I'm going to pull up, and it'll just be a little bit easier for me to read that way. Let me zoom out a little bit. Thank you guys for your patience and for everybody who's been supportive of our efforts here at the Conscious Resistance, of what we're trying to do here to bring you factual information, not just jump to conclusions and, confirm our own biases and all those kinds of things that we have to be wary of when we're trying to be critical thinkers. So in the last 2 or 3 decades, the explosive growth in the cellular telephone industry has placed many residences and metro areas within less than a mile of a cell tower. Future implementation of the next generation of mobile networking technology, 5G, will increase the cell tower densities by an order of magnitude. Health concerns have been raised about wireless radiation from 1, mobile communication devices, 2, occupational exposure, 3, residential exposure, 4, wireless networks in homes, businesses, and schools, automotive radar, and other non-ionizing EMF radiation sources such as smart meters and the coming Internet of Things. For those who might not understand what the Internet of Things is, the Internet of Things is something that I talked about in my documentary, The 5G Trojan Horse. It is your smart house, your smart fridge, your smart watch, the smart toaster, all of those things, all the interconnectedness between them. And so basically the fact that we're moving into this 5G smart grid, it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere, and you're going to be exposed to it everywhere. So yes, and this does include Wi-Fi. So let's get back to the study itself. By the way, could you guys see the study before I continue on? I think the window is working. And yeah, I appreciate any thumbs up. Give me your thumbs. I need your thumbs. Oh, actually, we can so I showed you the study. How about we just look at my notes itself? Since you've already seen the study, I just wanted to make sure people know it's a real study. I've linked to it. Let's just look at my notes. That might be a little bit easier. All right, so let me open that up a little bit wider. Let's zoom out of here. Let's get a little bit smaller. All right, okay. So these are the notes. Let's go to single page. These are the notes I made. The Internet of Things. There have been 2, now this is where they talk about the different types of studies. There have been 2 major types of studies performed to ascertain biological and health effects of wireless radiation: laboratory and epidemiology. The laboratory tests performed provide the best scientific understanding of the effects of wireless radiation, but did not reflect the real-life environment in which wireless radiation systems operate, including exposure to toxic chemicals, biotoxins, and other forms of toxic radiation. There are 3 main reasons the laboratory tests failed to reflect real-life exposure conditions for human beings. So 3 main reasons why the laboratory tests that looked into EMF exposure are not going to be accurate. First, the laboratory tests have been performed mainly on animals, especially rats and mice. Because of physiological differences between small animals and human beings, there have been continual concerns about extrapolating small animal results to human beings. So for example, guys, last year or 2 years ago, 2018, when the National Toxicology Program released their $35 million 10-year study, which conclusively found that 2G and 3G led to an increase in melanoma and schwannoma tumors in the brains and hearts of mice and rats. The FCC and the FDA stepped up and said, oh, no, that study it doesn't apply to 5G. We shouldn't even think about that because it's animals. It doesn't apply, right? So that's my point, is that basically they're going to try to step in every single time and say that, well, it's animals, it doesn't apply to humans, even though every single study that exists tends to study, every single biological study tends to study animals first prior to human trials. So it's kind of a cop-out, but the article, this study here does say that that's a problem. That's problematic, that if you're not actually looking at humans, well, then it's difficult to know. So because of physiological differences, additionally, while inhaled or ingested substances can be scaled from laboratory experiments on small animals to human beings relatively straightforwardly, radiation may be more problematic. For non-ionizing radiation, penetration depth is a function of frequency, tissue, and other parameters. So for non-ionizing radiation, like your cell phone, the depth that it can penetrate into your skin, your organs, it depends on the frequency, the tissue that it's absorbing into, and other parameters. Radiation could penetrate much deeper into a small animal's interior than similar wavelength radiation in humans because of the much smaller animal size. That makes sense. Different organs and tissues would be affected with different levels of power density. So that was first. Over here I have third. Maybe I skipped the second one. Let's go over here and look back at the study itself. I want to make sure I'm giving you guys accurate information. Again, thank you to everyone who is supporting the conscious resistance and our effort to actually expose 5G. And for those of you who haven't seen my documentary on 5G, I'm just going to have to ignore your opinions, because so many of you like, no, Derrick, have you seen this? No, have you seen this? You didn't talk about this. And I'm like, yeah, I talked about all that in my documentary. So please, I spent 1.5 years, 2 years researching it, hours and hours recording it, editing it, writing it. Maybe you can spend 1.5 hours watching it and then get back to me. So second right here we go. Second, zoom in a little bit. Second, the typical incoming EMF signal for most laboratory tests performed in the past consisted of a single carrier wave frequency. The lower frequency superimposed signal containing the information was not always included. This omission may be important. And they reference another study here from 2019, which I think is extremely important. And I will try to find that link and share it with you guys, because it just came out last year. And there's lots of people out there who think that there's no evidence that EMFs cause any harm when there's actually mountains of evidence. So as Panagopoulos states, quote, "It is important to note that except for the radio frequency, microwave carrier frequency, extremely low frequencies, otherwise known as ELFs, which are in the range of 0 to 3,000 hertz, are always present in all telecommunication EMFs in the form of pulsing and modulation." So they're saying that even if you're dealing with a signal on the spectrum that is at a higher frequency, or say it's in gigahertz like 5G, you still have the effect of the extremely low frequencies that are always present, pulsing and modulating that frequency in that signal. He continues, "There is significant evidence indicating that the effects of telecommunication EMFs on living organisms are mainly due to the included extremely low frequencies. While about 50% or less than 50% of the studies employing simulated exposures do not find any effects, studies employing real-life exposures from commercially available devices display on almost 100% consistency in showing adverse effects." So again, this is stressing the importance of any studies that do happen, that they need to study in real-life conditions. They actually need to be able to look at what's happening and how people being exposed to what's going on in real life conditions. So for example, right now I'm staring at you through a webcam in front of a computer with a laptop over here to my right, and there's a smart meter somewhere on this building, and other people in this building have cell phones and computers, and there's a TV over here that's unplugged, and it could still be putting out a signal. I doubt it, but my point is that's a lot of exposure. So when you isolate something like, say, an animal, a rat, or, for those who don't understand, the FCC studies the absorption rate on a freaking dummy, like a mannequin. So they don't actually study it on human beings. They're studying a single interaction with an EMF or radio frequency radiation. They're not studying the actual environment that we live in, which is surrounded by these things. So that's important. Think about that. All right, let's continue on with the study. Okay, third, these laboratory experiments typically involve one stressor and were performed under pristine conditions. Again, this is just kind of reiterating what I just said. This contradicts real-life exposures where humans are exposed to multiple toxic stimuli in parallel or over time. And they reference several studies from 2016, 2017, and 2019. And these are all in the notes. I will take screenshots of this, guys, and I'll post it on the Conscious Resistance. We'll make a post on there later today, probably later tonight, and I'll get that up there. And perhaps 5% of the cases reported in the wireless radiation literature, a second stressor, mainly a biological or chemical toxic stimulus, was added to the wireless radiation stressor to ascertain whether additive, synergistic, potentiative, or antagonistic effects were generated by the combination. So they said in 5% of the cases in the literature, they added at least one second stressor, which could be a biological or chemical toxic stimulus. And they found the combination experiments are extremely important because when other toxic stimuli are considered in combination either with each other or with wireless radiation, the synergies tend to enhance the adverse effects of each stimulus in isolation. So does that make sense to everybody? The synergies, the coming together, this synergistic energy, you could say, of wireless radiation and other toxic stimuli, either biological or chemical, enhance the adverse effects. So this does, I think, lend some credibility to the fact that people who, like each of us are going to be affected by this to different degrees. We have different bodies, we have different biology. That's one thing. The human body's not exactly the same for everybody. If you have a shitty diet and you're eating shitty things and you live next to a power plant and you're being exposed to that, and you may be working a job where you're getting exposed to toxic chemicals and you are surrounded by EMF exposure and things of that sort, well, then yes, you're going to be in a much different place than others, and you're going to be probably have a weaker immune system and a weaker biology overall. Then perhaps something like coronavirus comes around and you're more susceptible to that. I mean, that's just, some of us know our friends who don't eat organic, don't eat healthy, and we've seen them get sick every year from the flu, right? And sometimes the people who take the flu shot, they're always sick, aren't they? So there's a lot of factors in here is I think the main point this study is trying to make, and I'm really glad they're doing it because it's important to see that there's so many factors that play a role in this. So they continue. Thus, almost all of the wireless radiation laboratory experiments that have been performed to date are flawed or limited with respect to showing the full adverse impact of wireless radiation that would be expected under real life conditions. Either one, non-inclusion of signal information, or two, using single stressors only tends to underestimate the seriousness of the adverse effects from wireless radiation. Excluding both of these phenomena from experiments, as was done in the vast majority of the reported wireless radiation health effects studies, tends to amplify this underestimation substantially. I mean, that alone is a huge statement. They're saying that the people who are studying this, who exclude the phenomena of only using don't include signal information, and who also only use a single stressor, basically not studying it in real life conditions, it is going to underestimate substantially the health effects. Thus, the results reported in the biomedical literature should be viewed as, quote, one, extremely conservative, and two, the very low floor of the seriousness of the effects from wireless radiation, not the ceiling. That means that when you see a study that's saying it could potentially cause harm, you should see that as being a conservative estimate and on the low end of things, not as, okay, well, there's nothing to worry about. I can expose myself to as much EMFs and radio frequency radiation as possible because it does nothing. That's not the case. And let's continue here. From this perspective, radio frequencies is a highly pervasive cause of disease. The response from industry has been that no mechanism could explain the biological action of non-thermal and non-ionizing EMF fields, which is electromagnetic fields. So the point that they're making right there, for those who aren't quite up on it, What we've been told is that EMF exposure, radio frequency radiation exposure, can only happen through heating, only if you are close enough to something that can heat the skin, right? Like those of you who talked about, well, the DoD, they used EMFs as a crowd control weapon. It is true that the US government has a crowd control weapon that they have created. You can look up videos, and when they direct it at people, people describe it as feeling like their skin's burning. That's true. That is a real effect of these devices. But that is not the only way that it can harm you. It harms you biologically, right? So that's the point that they're making there, is there are other effects beyond heating. That's the main point there. And the non-ionizing EMF fields, because as I said earlier, we are told that non-ionizing means safe, basically. Yet reports of clear perturbations of biological systems at levels near or even below 1,000, and I don't know what that means. Excuse me, and my non-scientist brain. But they're referencing the Bio Initiative 2019. For those who haven't seen that, that's another great study that collects all kinds of research on EMF exposure. It says, yet reports of clear perturbations of biological systems were explained by perturbations in electron and proton transfers supporting ATP production in mitochondria. We'll have somebody, hopefully Dr. Martin Paul, come on the show soon to explain more of that. So 5, this is the 5th section, getting to the conclusion in the study. It says, what types of biological and health effects can be expected from 5G wireless networking technology? The common wisdom presented in literature and media is that if there are adverse impacts resulting from high-band 5G, the main impacts will be focused on near-surface phenomena such as skin cancer, cataracts, or other skin conditions. So that's already what they admit. They admit that potentially there could be skin conditions, potentially you could get cataracts in the eyes and other skin conditions, but they totally ignore other biological effects. However, there is evidence that biological within the skin and subsequent systemic signaling in the skin can result in physiological effects on the nervous system, the heart, and immune system. Responses to millimeter wave irradiation can be initiated. Now, let me show you the actual study for a second, because they list even further evidence. Let's scroll down here. Again, guys, my name is Derrick Broze. You are listening to The Conscious Resistance. We do this 4 to 5 times a week via Facebook, YouTube. Our website's theconsciousresistance.com. I released a documentary 2 months ago called The 5G Trojan Horse that I think outlines this from the least conspiratorial way possible. This is not the 5G apocalypse that's telling you that your head's going to explode tomorrow or anything like that. There's no hyperbole. There's no exaggerations. It's interviews with experts, as well as me confronting people in positions of power. All right, here we go, I think. Okay, so here's some of the problems that they list. Carcinogen, brain tumors, glioma, breast cancer, acoustic neuromas, leukemia, parotid gland tumors, genotoxicity, DNA damage, DNA repair inhibition, mutagenicity, teratogenicity, neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, and others, neurobehavioral problems, including autism, reproductive problems, pregnancy outcomes, excessive reactive oxygen species, oxidative stress, which can lead to all kinds of other things, inflammation, blood-brain barrier disruption, pineal gland melatonin production. Let me stop right there, guys, and just say this. For those of you who are kind of on the awareness of how powerful the pineal gland is and regulating dreams and sleep and DMT production and things of that sort, and melatonin. This, I think, is probably a huge, huge concern that we should worry about, because the longer we spend in front of these systems, and if you leave your Wi-Fi plugged in at night, unplug it at night. Continue to unplug it every single night, because you're not using it whenever you're sleeping, but it is affecting you. It affects your melatonin production, which affects your sleep. It can also, obviously, as we just said, oxidative stress, break down your cells. And in that process, you're not going to allow your body the opportunity to repair cells at night, to get good sleep like you need to be functioning properly. And especially when we're in a time right now where it's, we're dealing with a virus, we're dealing with sickness and whatever else, plus all the toxins in the world. Even if you think COVID-19 is fake, there's all sorts of other toxins. And the less good sleep you get, the more susceptible you are to those things breaking down your biology and affecting your immune system. So EMF exposure can weaken your immune system. It can affect melatonin production. It can affect your sleep. And if you're leaving your Wi-Fi on at night, I highly suggest, if you do nothing else after this video, at least end that. Stop doing that. Sleep disturbance, headache, irritability, fatigue, concentration difficulties, depression, dizziness, tinnitus, burning and flushed skin, digestive disturbances, tremors, cardiac irregularities, and adverse impacts on the neurocirculatory, immune, endocrine, and skeletal systems. All right, so what are the conclusions? What did these 4 gentlemen who did this study conclude? As we just showed you all those symptoms, their conclusions were wireless radiation offers the promise of improved remote sensing, improved communications and data transfer, and improved connectivity. Unfortunately, there is a large body of data from laboratory studies showing that previous and present generations of wireless networking technology have significant adverse health impacts. Much of this data was obtained under conditions not reflective of real life. When real life considerations are added, such as 1, including the information content of signals, along with the carrier frequencies and including other toxic stimuli in combination, the wireless radiation, the adverse effects associated with wireless radiation are increased substantially. Superimposing 5G radiation on an already embedded toxic wireless radiation environment will exacerbate the adverse health effects shown to exist. Far more research and testing of potential 5G health effects under real-life conditions is required before further rollout can be justified. I mean, they say it pretty clearly there. And for those who are just joining, this is the study that we're looking at here. Let's pull it up one more time. This is the study right here. And it hasn't even been published yet. It comes out May 1st, 2020 in the journal, but it's available, of course, if you want to go here and spend the $60 like I did to get it. I read you guys the credentials. These are not some crackpot individuals. You can pull them up and look up who they are. They also, of course, said they have no conflicting interests. They even, actually, let me pull up one more part of this, guys, because there's another section where they talk about conflicting interests, and they talk about why so many studies have trouble showing the real problems. Let me see if this will show me industry. I know us. Okay. Okay. So right here they say, what is the consensus on adverse effects from wireless radiation? And they admit that not all studies of wireless radiation have shown adverse effects. And they go through a couple of them there. And they say there are many possible reasons to explain this lack of consensus. Up here, scrolling up. For one, they said there may be windows in parameter space where adverse effects occur, and operation outside these windows would show no effects or hormetic effects or therapeutic effects. For example, if information content of the signal is a strong contributor to adverse health effects, as this study has shown, then experiments that involve only the carrier frequencies may be outside the window where adverse health effects occur. Alternatively, in this specific example, the carrier signal and the information signal could be viewed as a combination of potentially toxic stimuli, where the adverse effects of each component are enabled because of the synergistic effects of the combination. So again, they're saying that people are not considering the synergistic effects of toxic stimuli in the environment combined with EMF exposure. And they also go on to list some other examples. They say the research quality could be poor and adverse effects were overlooked. The research team could have had a preconceived agenda where finding no adverse effects from wireless radiation was, in fact, the objective of the study. And they say, for example, studies have shown that industry-funded research of wireless radiation adverse health effects is far more likely to show no effects than funding from non-industry sources. And there's at least 3 studies since 2007 that have shown that. Again, studies that have been industry-funded tend to show less adverse health effects than those that were funded by non-industry sources. Studies in disciplines other than wireless radiation have shown that for products of high military, commercial, and political sensitivity, researchers' organizations are hired to publish articles that conflict with the credible science and therefore create doubt as to whether the product of interest is harmful. And this is something we've talked about, guys, that the much like the tobacco industry of the 40s and 50s lied to so many people and told them that smoking was safe, and they even got the celebrities and the influential class to sell cigarettes to people. Think about all the Wi-Fi and 5G commercials you're seeing out there, and how during the Super Bowl they were promoting 5G, and there's even celebrities and people getting behind it, pushing it. That's the same thing. The Nation magazine wrote a really good article 2 years ago that said how big wireless convinced the US that cell phones are safe. And it looked into this whole thing and compared big wireless, big tech to what we used to know as big tobacco. And it's the same thing. They are using their money and their influence to influence the studies. And that's just what it comes down to. I know some people have trouble thinking that. They think that science is just this perfectly pure, field that does not have any sort of negative influence, but it's not true, guys. Industry can influence every aspect of our life. Let's go on here. Okay. Unfortunately, given the strong dependence of the civilian and military economies on wireless radiation, incentives for identifying adverse health effects from wireless radiation are minimal and disincentives are many. These perverse incentives apply not only to the sponsors of research, but to the performers as well. Even the gold standard for research credibility, independent research, reapplication of research results, is questionable in politically, commercially, and military sensitive areas like wireless radiation sensitivity or safety, where the accelerated implementation goals of most wireless radiation research sponsors are aligned. So what that sentence means is like, look, you've got politicians, you've got the commercial aspect, which is the industry like big wireless, Verizon, the CTIA that I talked about in my documentary, and the military, who all want to use these technologies. They want to use them because they think 5G is going to make things faster, and there's all sorts of businesses who want to launch. And of course, governments know that they can spy and monitor on the people easier with the smart grid. The military wants to use it for all kinds of reasons. There's kind of like a digital Cold War going on right now between the US and China over 5G. The US is claiming, oh, no company should use Huawei's equipment because the Chinese government could use it to spy on people, as if the US government couldn't use American equipment to spy on people. But that's kind of what they're saying, is that independent research is hard to come by because there's so much interest that are really trying to stop this. And for those who might not believe that and don't understand that, there was a Harvard study that came out a couple years ago. Let me see if I can just pull it up real quick. It was called Captured Agency. And I talked about this in my documentary. It was put out by this journalist. What's his name? Captured Agency, from the Edmund J. Safra Center for Ethics at Harvard University. And they basically said that the FCC, just like other American government agencies, is what they call a captured agency, while the agencies that they're, or the institutions that they're supposed to regulate, in this case, the telecommunications companies, have actually taken over the industry or have actually taken over the regulating bodies and have control of it. That's what they call a captured agency. I'm trying to see if I can pull that up. It's loading right now. But it comes from the Harvard Center for Ethics. It came out, I think, 2014. Yeah, it's pulling up right now. And I covered that in my documentary as well. And there's plenty of other examples going back to the 90s of researchers trying to speak out when cell phones were first becoming normalized. Again, guys, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or push my own stuff, but I feel like our documentary is an hour and a half of very deep and extensive information. I tried to take all the various threads that people put together and put in one documentary and keep it as factual and as little speculation as possible, so that people can see the facts. And here is the study, the Harvard study. Let me pull that up real quick. What do you guys think about this new program? I'm using it for the first time. All right, so there you go. Captured Agency, how the Federal Communications Commission is dominated by the industries it presumably regulates by Norm Alster. I'll post this link in the comments and you guys can check that out. But let's get to the final point. We're reading the conclusion. There's that study for those of you. Hopefully you guys can see it everywhere. We're going to read the conclusion now of this study, and then we're done for today. And I'm going to go enjoy a hike outside. All right, let's check this. Conclusions. Well, I think we already read the conclusion, didn't we? Yeah, superimposing 5G radiation on an already embedded toxic wireless radiation environment will exacerbate the adverse health effects shown to exist. Far more research and testing of potential 5G health effects under real-life conditions is required before further rollout can be justified. And here is their references. As you can see, it is extensive. I'm going to be spending my time going through these. And I think somebody said this in the comments, but let me search this real quick, because this is something many people have talked about, but some folks don't know, that the Russians, those Russians that the Americans are told to hate and suspect of everything, the Russians actually studied this quite some time ago, and they've known since at least 1977 that there were adverse health effects to EMF exposure. Maybe if I search 1977. Where we go? Okay, cool. Right there. So additionally, considering the following reference, this is one of many translations of articles produced in the former Soviet Union on wireless radiation, research on this topic. On page 57 of the PDF link, the article addresses biological effects of millimeter radio waves. This researcher ran experiments, and he also, this will interest some of you guys, he ran experiments on 60 gigahertz. Not only was skin impacted adversely, but also the heart, liver, kidney, spleen tissue as well, and blood and bone marrow properties as well. These results reinforce the conclusion of Russell, quoted above, that systemic results may occur from millimeter wave radiation. What is 5G using? Millimeter waves. Every time you go to the airport, what is that body scanner using? Millimeter waves. I opt out. I've been opting out for years. And anytime I fly, which has been increasingly more over the last couple of years that I've been speaking around the world, I always opt out, guys. Opt out. They might not tell you you have the opportunity, and they're going to tell you, oh, no, there's nothing to worry about. This machine's safe. But we know that millimeter waves can cause harm. And it's a cumulative effect. You're not going to go through it one time and get cancer. But if you fly a lot, especially say you have a business job that takes you flying, and you're doing this body scanner every single day or once a week or whatever, it's going to build up. So to reemphasize, this Russian researchers' experiments, which were from 1977, said the incoming signal was unmodulated carrier frequency only, and the experiment was single stressor only. So they didn't even do the full study it in real life. But it said, thus, the expected real-world results would be far more serious and would be initiated at lower, perhaps much lower, wireless radiation power fluxes. So what they're saying is, yeah, this study found negative impacts, but they also didn't study real-world results where human beings are impacted and the signals are pulsed and modulated, and there's exposure to many toxic stimuli in the environment. But even with that, they found negative health effects. And so they're saying the serious health effects will probably be at much lower levels than what they even studied. So they conclude I can't even pronounce that name. We're just going to say the Russian paper was published in 1977. The reference version was classified in 1977 by USA authorities. Why would the US government want that to be classified and not available to the American people? And declassified in 2012. And they ask, what national security concerns caused it to be classified for 35 years until declassification in 2012? Other papers on this topic with similar findings were published in the USSR and the USA at that time, or even earlier, but many of them never saw the light of day, both in the USSR and the USA. It appears that the potentially damaging effects of millimeter wave radiation on the skin and other major systems of the body have been recognized for well over 40 years. Yet today's discourse only revolves around the possibility of modest potential effects on the skin and perhaps cataracts from millimeter wave wireless radiation. Wow, pretty crazy. Pretty crazy stuff, guys. What do you think about all this? And this program pretty cool because I can see everybody commenting on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. I feel like I'm in all places at once. All right, though. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Again, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. We've been looking at a study titled Adverse Health Effects of the 5G Mobile Networking Under Real Life Conditions, which is going to be coming out in early May. And the journal Toxicology Letters. As I said, you can go here. I'll post this link for you guys too if you want to see this directly yourself. And you can buy it. It costs $60 to buy it. And you have to use Adobe Editions to look at it. It's kind of silly. But I did so, and that's because I don't want to just speculate. I didn't want to just do a report and only read the abstract. I need to read the whole article. You know, if you actually want to do some research, you got to do some digging. You might have to spend some money. You might have to spend some time. You can't just watch a YouTube video and then run off and tell everybody you know what's going on. Although that seems to be a favorite pastime for many people. So we're putting the link now. People are asking, what's the name of the documentary? The documentary is The 5G Trojan Horse. If you go to theconsciousresistance.com, you'll see the very first thing. It's on the front page, 5G Trojan Horse. You can watch it for free. There's a link to our Vimeo account if you want to buy it and download it to make sure in case it's ever deleted, you have a copy of it. I also have my documentary, Who Will Find What the Finders Hide, on there as well. So, yes, there are health problems and health concerns with radio frequency radiation and with 5G. You know, I've been getting called a shill lately and getting people telling me I sold out because I haven't just totally bought into the COVID-19 conspiracy. I've been fact checking it. I've been asking questions. I've been actually trying to interview experts. I will say I have an interview coming up with Dr. Andrew Kaufman. He's talking about exosomes and germ theory and terrain theory, and talking about kind of external environmental factors. We'll get into that. I'm also going to be interviewing a gentleman who I believe is also a doctor who wants to debunk the work of Dr. Andrew Kaufman. And maybe we'll get the two of them to debate in a friendly discussion, because that's what I'm here to do, is to research. This channel is all about me, myself, and the other contributors here, bringing information to you guys, trying to empower ourselves, empower each of us by digging deeper and asking the hard questions. So I'm not going to come out immediately like the rest of you guys like to do and just jump on and say, yes, I know that this is what's going on, because I don't know. And most of you don't know. You just like to act like you know. And I know that's fun, but I want to get to the truth. And truth is a very slippery topic. I have a video coming out called The Difference Between Believing and Knowing, because I think some of you might need to understand the difference between believing and knowing. And we'll explore all that very soon. But I'm going to leave it there for now. I will scroll up. If you got some questions, get them in now. I'm going to scroll up as far as I can and read some of these. Edward Bernays later went on an anti-smoking campaign also, and it was suppressed by the government. Interesting. Bernays did a lot of damage. Bill Gates is behind 5G. I haven't seen that myself. There's a lot of people funding 5G, but I mean, Bill Gates is funding the World Health Organization and all kinds of other things, ID 2020. I've done reports on those guys. For those who want to understand the bigger picture, I know a lot of people are freaking out about David Icke's interview. I've met David Icke. I've heard him speak more than a handful of times. I think he brings some good information. I honestly didn't think the interview was that impressive. I thought it was a lot of new, information that's been elsewhere. Maybe he put it together in a good format. But my point is that the technocracy is coming into view. For those who needed David Icke to tell you, it's coming into view. This is why I wrote a book called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which also is available for free on theconsciousresistance.com, describing how to survive all this stuff. Yes, the population is much easier to control if they're in a city, not to mention they want to control all food production and distribution. Where can we find the study? I posted a link, everybody. ID 2020. Yeah, Norm Alster was the journalist who did the Harvard study. The 5G Trojan Horse is a great documentary. Thank you. They really just want to reduce us. I think that might be true. Stop complying. Yes, it's definitely time to stop complying. I also have another video. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I want to save this for a separate video. I know you guys have been seeing the reports of 5G towers being burnt in the UK. I'm going to hold off on my opinion on that for a moment, on whether or not I think that's good or effective strategy. But for those of you who've read my book, specifically part 2, look up, just do a word search of that if you have the digital version of Seek and Destroy, and you'll see my thoughts on that. But we'll be talking about that more in an upcoming video. All right. Interesting and true. New program looks good. All right, cool. I think I'm done with comments, guys. I'm ready to get out of here. It's been a long day reading this. Just downloaded the How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. Awesome. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Why don't someone put a petition to absolve the government? I'm sorry, but a petition's not going to get rid of the government. Holy crap, guys. Wouldn't it be funny if it was that easy? And I'm not hating on anybody. I have friends who will send me petitions occasionally, be like, hey, will you sign this? But petitions don't get things done, guys. Petitions are shit, and they're not going to do anything. They're not going to change the world. You're going to change the world. Each of us are going to change the world, but we have to start learning how to opt out of these systems. I use the technology so I can bring you information, but I also try to reduce my exposure to it as much as possible. I spend a lot of time on computers, and so I try to spend time outside in the sun, in the fresh air, out in nature, and kind of, you could call it a detox, if you will, taking some of those EMF radio frequency radiation exposure away from me, spending time outside. And this is important for us to do. We need to unplug from their systems, from their economic system, support and use alternative currencies when possible, barter, trade, etc. Create a new local currency. We need to unplug from their food production system because it's unsustainable and it will crash and you will be screwed if you're dependent on it. We need to unplug from their education system. We need to unplug from their digital communication system. We need those smart, brilliant minds out there to create new decentralized mesh networks so that we can use the internet and can use cell phones and maybe even safer technologies to get information out there and to communicate, but not have to support Verizon and Sprint and big wireless and all that. We need alternatives to every single system that these people use to control us. Media, education, food, economy, government. We need alternatives to all these things. And we don't need to go back. There's no going back, guys. Don't you understand this? The system is so freaking corrupted. It's not just the FCC that is a captured agency. It's the EPA. It's the whole government. And, I'm speaking as somebody who's from America in Mexico, but I think this problem is universal. Government is corrupt. Government is violence. If you give human beings the opportunity to rule over other human beings, they will become corrupted, and they will use it to pad their pockets and to make sure that them and their buddies are sitting pretty while the rest of us are screwed. And the people in power right now who believe they are in power, who are using government and violence, they want you dead. That might be a controversial statement to some of you. Some of you know what's up. Maybe you just came here for a 5G study, and now I'm getting off into a rant and things like that. But this is the truth, and I don't really care who understands it yet or not. My work has shown me that, and I think others realize that. You need to question the people in power, I'll say that, because we are power. We are the true power. And if you need some inspiration, go watch my video I released about a week or two ago called We Are Power. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you, everybody who's supporting us via patreon.com/Derrick Broze. Thank you to everybody who makes one-time donations via PayPal. Those of you who support me on float.app via crypto. And just everybody who helps, man. You guys are amazing. I couldn't do this without you. We're about to hit 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. We just passed 4,000 on the Derrick Broze Facebook. We're at 40,000 on the Conscious Resistance on Facebook. If you're not subscribed to this channel, wherever you're watching, please follow, like, subscribe, share. Thank you guys so much. And don't forget, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace, my friends.